Hi, it's Nicole. For the next 2 weeks, we'll be reading Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and some other Middle English romances. At the beginning of the year, when I saw the list of seminar subjects and I saw Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I thought, I read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, I'll be fine. So I read the Norton Anthology edition, which is translated by Simon Armitage. Simon Armitage is the current English poet laureate, British poet laureate. I don't know exactly which one it is, but yes, this one that I read is translated by Simon Armitage, and I really liked it, and I was really surprised how accessible it was and how fun it was and how much I got. So I was really glad when I saw Sir Gawain and the Green Knight on the list of seminars. And now is the time. For the next 2 weeks, I'll be reading Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So I went to the library and I found the recommended edition on the reading list. And to my surprise, I'll show you a clip that I took in the library just now. It's worse than Middle English. I thought after Chaucer, everything is going to just get a bit easier because surely there's nothing worse than Middle English. But when I looked at Sir Gawain and the Green Knight in its original form, in its original text, it doesn't even look English. The letters are not from modern English alphabet. So another challenge. I thought things are going to get easier, but clearly not. So I got a horrible shock. I got a terrible surprise when I was in the library. Anyway, I found this edition, which is on the reading list, but it doesn't have a star. So I think it's still acceptable. But the ones with a star doesn't have translation. There's no way I'm going to read this without translation. I'm going to read this in translation. I haven't received an email from the professor yet, but I will read the translation. But having said that, at the beginning, when I started reading Middle English, when I started reading Troilus and Crusade, I thought it was impossible as well. But by now, I'm fluent in Middle English. This one, Middle English romances, will be reading Sir Orfeo in Middle English, and I can manage, no problem at all. I don't need to do the table anymore. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, well, probably 4 weeks ago now, when I started reading Troilus and Crusade, I had to do the table, the original, the tidy spelling and the summary and notes for myself to be able to get my head around what the story is about. By the time I read The Legend of Good Women, I no longer needed to do that. I could understand the text pretty much immediately. I still wrote down basically my own translation. So I would read the text. I had my text, the original text, on one side, and I could just type my own translation at the same time. And it was useful to have my own translation because I could write notes next to it. It was helpful in the seminar during the discussion as well. I could locate the plots, the bits I wanted to talk about immediately rather than looking at the original Middle English while I had to discuss it. I think that's an improvement. My Middle English definitely has improved. I'll be taking on the new challenge of reading, I don't know what language is this. I think it must be older than Middle English. I should have done some research before I started this video, but it's part of the fun to share what my immediate initial impressions and responses are. and how I get on. I hope you don't mind. So this is the beginning of the next reading vlog as I read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and the Middle English romances. So let's see how it goes. I have now finished reading Sir Gawain and the Green Knight in Simon Armitage translation. From your perspective, I haven't even moved, but it's been quite a few days. I enjoyed it again. I really enjoyed the translation. I highly recommend if you want to read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Simon Armitage translation. Highly recommend. Just a quick summary of the story itself. So Sir Gawain is King Arthur's nephew. They were having a Christmas party, feast, ladies and lords. Everybody was just making merry, and in came a Green Knight, a giant of a person, very handsome, very like a warrior kind of figure on a green horse. Anyway, came into the court of Arthur, said, "One of you, please," this is highly paraphrasing, "one of you chop off my head. A year later, please come and find me. I'll chop off your head." So Arthur said, "I'll do it." And Gawain said, no, you can't do it. You're the king, I'll do it. So Gawain cut off this green giant's head, and the Green Knight just picked his head up and left, say, "Keep your promise, come and find me." Everybody's like, what is happening? So a year later, Gawain went out in December to look for this Green Knight, and on his way he came across a castle. There was a very hospitable lord with his lady, so Gawain stayed with them for the Christmas period, and he told them about this Green Knight, saying, "Do you know about this person? I need to find him on New Year Day, I think. And I have this promise I have to fulfill. I need to find him, and this is what's going to happen." So the lord of the castle said, "Yeah, I know where this guy is. Just stay with us, have a happy Christmas, and then we'll send you on our way." When Gawain stayed with this lord and lady and the household, the lord went hunting 3 times, and the lady came and tempted Gawain 3 times. And very interestingly, the title is called Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, right? The first part and the third part are about this Green Knight and the encounter with Gawain, well, Gawain's encounter with this Green Knight. The middle part, which I think is the longest part, is all about Gawain's stay at this castle, which seems to have nothing to do with this Green Knight. But there's a very interesting twist, which I am not going to tell you because it will spoil the story. It's that good. I don't want to spoil it for you. Sometimes for academic reading, I have to read it for the sake of discussion or for the sake of the seminar. And I'm not that bothered usually spoiling the stories for you, I'm sorry to say, but it's just like, it doesn't matter very much. I don't think you'll read it. If you do read it, me spoiling it wouldn't matter very much. You'll still either enjoy it or you'll still not enjoy it. But this is so good. I don't want to tell you what happened at the end. I think you will enjoy it. I don't know about other translations. This translation is also very funny. There's a lot of witty Britishness in it. I like it so much. I think I'm going to write my essay on this. This is one of the possibilities. I haven't decided. We have now received the subjects, the possible topics for the essays we have to write. So we have to write 2 essays this year. The first one due January it's a 2,000-word essay, which is not very long, and we received 29 items, and each item, some of the items have multiple options. Anyway, enough options for essay topics. And I need to decide on my first essay topic soon-ish. Because the deadline is January, I haven't started yet, so I will be writing it over Christmas period, over December and Christmas period and New Year period. And this story is about Christmas and New Year. Well, the story happens during Christmas and New Year. I think this will be a perfect story to talk about, just because that's when the deadline is. Why not? That's a good reason to write an essay on this book, on this story. And I do enjoy it very much, so this is definitely one of my options. Talking about Christmas and New Year reading, I've been thinking, what do I want to read for this Christmas and New Year time, just to have some break, so I don't keep reading books for academic purpose for my seminars, which kind of get a bit tiring. I recently read my first non-study related book for the first time since September. I need to get it for you to show you what it is. It is Philip Pullman Grimm Tales for Young and Old. So I received this recently from a family member. She just finished reading it and she really enjoyed it, so she sent it to me, and I thought, fairy tales, just something different for my usual reading. And it's kind of narrative transformations as well, which is interesting. But yeah, this is the first book that's not uni related that I read since September. Yeah, so for Christmas and New Year period, I'm going on a little holiday to see family, so I'm thinking, what shall I take with me? I'm actually thinking The Nutcracker. I read it once, and I don't know what you think. At the beginning, at first, it sounds really random. You read a complete chaos. The story just goes everywhere. But I think it's a Christian allegory, but it's less neat than The Lion, Witch and Wardrobe. It doesn't map onto all the gospel elements that neatly, but I'm not 100% sure. I read The Nutcracker a few years ago. Well, I read it after I started this channel because I remember talking about it in one of the videos. But I'd like to read it again to analyze it a bit more, just to read it in a bit more detail, because my other module, which I haven't talked about at all, you probably forgot about it. It's called Creative Nonfiction. So we've been studying memoir for the first 3 seminars, and last week the subject moved on to essay. So I'm going to try my hand on writing an essay, and I've been thinking, what topic should I write? But maybe I should write a essay on The Nutcracker, just because I remember it was really fun reading it and thinking about it. And then I remember at the time I thought I will one day come back to it and write up something more coherent, more thoughtful, and maybe I'll make a video from that essay I write and share with you my thoughts, so you know kind of what my thoughts and ideas about the story, as well as what my academic writing is about and what it looks like, and what's the difference between talking to you guys and writing a academic essay. That's the idea. I'd like to do that, but as everything else on this channel and in my life, I can't promise. I'd like to do that. I'll try my best, but if it doesn't happen, please don't be disappointed. That's just life. So tonight, it's Sunday, it's the 1st of December, we're in December. Tonight I'm going to I'm trying to think. I'm trying to decide what to do tonight for the few hours I have at home alone, which is very rare. I can either write up some thoughts about Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, just to put my notes together and then see if those thoughts lead to a paper, a essay. But to be able to do that, I want to look through the whole story from the beginning to the end again. It's not a very big story, and this Faber edition is so beautiful. I don't know if I'll be able to do all of that in one night. It's about 110 pages, 114 pages in this edition. The other thing I could do is start reading Sir Orfeo, which is the second Middle English romance we are assigned to read. I can make a start with that. That one is not very long, but I also don't think I'll be able to finish it all in one day. There's probably other things I should do too. There are some assigned readings for the next Creative Nonfiction seminar. I need to make a start as well, but I feel like I still have time for that. But maybe I'll search out how long each articles are, just in case one of them is a full-length book and I get a nasty surprise later on. But for now, I should get on with some work. See you later. Hi, I'm on my way to Durham. I finished reading Sir Orfeo, so I want to tell you what it's about before I go into my seminar in about 2 hours. So Sir Orfeo is actually based on the Greek myth Orpheus and Eurydice. I didn't know that, and that was a nice surprise. I didn't see the resemblance in their name at all. So in the original Greek myth, Orpheus was going to marry Eurydice, and on their wedding day, Eurydice was bitten by a snake and she died. So Orpheus went to the underworld to bring her back, and on the way he had to fight the three-headed giant dog, the one in Harry Potter, and the Furies and all sorts of monsters and beasts with his harp. He is a musician. I forgot to say a very important point. He is a musician, he's a poet. He carries a harp around and he plays beautiful music, and everybody kind of bow down and worship him because his music is so beautiful. I hope you can still hear me. I'm in the train station. Enjoy the train announcement. Anyway, so he went all the way to the underworld and kind of conquered and tamed all of these beasts and furies with his music, and went all the way to see the king and queen of the underworld. I can't remember the name of the king of the underworld. I think it's Pluto and Persephone, but I might be mixing their Greek names and their Roman names. Apologies. And he went, and then he played the music again, and the king of the underworld said, "That was beautiful, you can have your wife back." Obviously, Orpheus begged for his wife's life to come back to the world, to the living world. And the king of the underworld said, "Because of your music, yes, take her, but you can lead her back to the world above, but you can't look back at her until you get out of the underworld." And Orpheus almost managed it, but at the last minute he looked back for whatever reason, and Eurydice fell back into the underworld again, and he lost her once again. So I'm just sitting down, sorry, let me move this. So Orpheus lost her again, and he wandered around in the world alone, said, "I will never fall in love with any other woman ever again." And he came to a tragic, sticky end. I think a mob of women, I don't know who they were,
cut him up, as in torn him up, and his body parts flowed down the river and whatever. And in the end, he ended up in underworld and finally met his wife again, and they lived happily after in the underworld. Anyways, something like that. It's in Ovid's Metamorphoses, book 10 and 11, I think. That's a tragic Greek myth. And this retelling from the Middle Ages, this English romance, turned this into a comedy. Well, not a comedy exactly, but yeah, I guess it is a comedy. So the story ends with a happy ending. So Sir Orfeo is now a king. He's a king as well as a harpist. And Eurydice was sleeping under a tree, and she had a dream. In this dream, the king of the fairy and his train kind of came and visited her and said, "I'm going to take you away." So she woke up crying and in distress, and the king said, "What happened?" She said what happened in her dream, and they were going to be separated, and there was nothing they can do. The king said, "I will defend you, obviously, I will not let anyone to take you away." So the next day he put army all around her, but obviously the fairy king appeared and just magicked her away, and she disappeared, and nobody ever know what happened to her after that. So the king basically left his kingdom and his throne, saying, "I don't care about this anymore, I'm going." So he gave his kingdom to a steward to look after, and he went into the wilderness for 10 years. So he ate berries and slept on moss. He had rags to cover himself, and he hid in a tree, and he played his harp, and all the animals would come and listen to him. And one day he saw this massive group of people hunting. He was curious, so he looked a bit more, and he saw a group of ladies hunting. And then among this group of ladies, behold, there was his wife. So he followed them through a cave to the fairy kingdom. This fairy kingdom was a flat, green, smooth land with a crystal castle in the middle. Everything was shiny, was bright, was white, beautiful towers with battlements, walls made of precious stones, and it was a very different image from the underworld image. This was definitely not underworld, this was a fairy kingdom, which is a very interesting difference. So he said, "I'll play you a song," and the king loved it so much. He said, "I will grant you a wish." And then obviously Orfeo said, "Can I please have my wife back?" And then the king said, "No, you can't have her back because you look awful." Well, she's beautiful, which is a strange reason. And Orfeo said, "Well, that doesn't make sense. You should keep your word, otherwise it doesn't become you." So the king said, "All right, fine, you can have her," which is very easy in my eyes, a very easily convinced fairy king. So there was no condition either. Orfeo just took Eurydice back to his kingdom, safe and sound. And then the story turned into a test of the steward. So Orfeo went back to his court and basically tested his steward if he had been faithful, if he had been loyal to him, and the steward was, and he was rewarded, and he gave the kingdom back to Sir Orfeo, and everybody lived happily ever after. It's a very different story, and I'm still trying to get my head around it. The compare and contrast between the similarities and differences between the two stories, and the story itself. There are some interesting motifs in it. I'm still trying to think it through in my head. I keep looking that way because I don't want to miss my train. So that's the story itself. We'll be discussing it later. I will report if there's anything interesting that worth reporting. So see you in a bit.
last day before Christmas in Durham, my last day of the term. It's officially the end of term. We are not going to have any more seminars for a few weeks until January next year, so that's a relief. But now I need to focus on my essays. I have 2 essays to hand in January. One counts towards the final mark, so I need to pay attention, use my brain, do a good job, hopefully. The other one is more a exercise. So I'll tell you a bit more about those 2 essays, because that's what I'm going to do over Christmas, over the next 5-6 weeks. So the essay that will be marked is for the narrative transformations module. I decided, as I said earlier in this video, to focus on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and Sir Orfeo, these 2 works. At the beginning, I was tempted to choose the essay topic, which says, in translating poetry, you are either transfused by the soul of the original or you are nowhere, which means it's a essay on translation. So how well the translators translate the original. So in my case, it would be how well Simon Armitage, for example, and how well Tolkien translated Sir Gawain and the Green Knight from Middle English. I have a cold. Because I have a translation background, I was attracted by that topic, but I'm a bit worried that I don't know the soul of the original well enough to have meaningful discussion. I don't know the original Middle English of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight well enough to know if Simon Armitage and Tolkien were transfused by the soul of the original. So I gave up that topic, and now I'm going to work on the closure, the ending of Sir Gawain and Sir Orfeo, and compare them and see where I end up. It's still a bit unclear. I emailed the professor this week, but the professor didn't reply me, and the end of term has already come and passed. As in, yesterday was the last day of the term, and she didn't reply me, so I don't think she will reply me. So I will just have to go for it and hope for the best. For the other essay, it's for the Creative Nonfiction module. The discussion has been very interesting. My arm is getting tired. Wait a sec. Right, I put you down so I don't have to hold you up, and you can see how tall my plants have grown. So the Creative Nonfiction module, we've been talking about essays recently and creative criticism specifically yesterday. There was the discussion about how do you write an essay. There are, I guess, 2 schools of thought when you write an essay for academic purpose. You use quite specific language, and when you publish a paper, it's locked up on specific websites. People like us, the ordinary readers, would never have access to them. You need a login, whatever, you might have to pay for them. And the language is quite academic and specific. It's not that easy to understand. Well, that's how I feel, at least. A lot of the essays and books I read from the library for my course, it's really hard work. I have no idea what they're talking about. And sometimes I think, can you not talk in normal everyday speech? Are you trying to communicate what you think and tell me what you think and show me your argument, or are you making this harder than necessary? This is one school. The other school, I guess, is if you have an argument, if you have a point, could you explain it to a 6-year-old? If you are really clear in your head, you should be able to do that. And
do it in plain language. But then some things are complicated, and you might need specific vocabulary and jargons to express yourself. So where do you stand on that scale of the, I guess, method of writing essays? So that's a very interesting discussion. And so I've been learning new things, reading some examples of essays and creative criticism on artwork, for example, on literature, obviously, and on film and music. So I've been enjoying those very much. They are not the style I enjoy normally if it's for personal reading, for just for fun. Basically, if it's not for this degree, I would not have read them at all. They are not my style. But it's really interesting to read them and see what you can do. And it's an eye-opening experience. And I am convinced and tempted to write essays in those styles and try to copy their examples and see what I can come up with. So for yesterday's seminar, I wrote a really short exercise piece called On 2 Film Adaptations Being Transfused by the Soul of the Original Novels. So that title is a bit of a joke, obviously. Yeah, that's what I did. So I borrowed the essay topic from my narrative transformations module and used it in my creative nonfiction module, a essay for that module. So I compared 2 film adaptations. Well, not quite compared. I talked about 2 film adaptations, which is The Little Women and House Moving Castle, and discussed why I thought the film directors, the writers of those 2 films, were transfused by the spirit and the soul of the original, and why I think they did a really good job. And I wrote it not in the academic style that would hurt your head to read. I wrote them in everyday language and kind of linked the subject matters to my personal life, because that's the examples we've been given recently. Those are the books we've been reading for this seminar specifically, and I really enjoyed it. I mentioned the Nutcracker earlier in this video. I would like to do that, write an essay in this style for the Nutcracker as well. There are so many books to read, so many books that I have read a little bit, but in a rush, that I would love to spend more time. But I don't think I'll be able to do that over Christmas and New Year period, because there are essays to write, so I will still have to focus. And I will have to try not to stress out during the Christmas week and to properly spend time with family. So I will have to focus and not just read whatever I want to read. But I have the advantage of not writing a dissertation at the same time, which I feel very fortunate. I feel very lucky that I am doing this part-time. So my dissertation comes next year, which gives me a lot more time for the 3rd term of this year. So after Christmas and New Year, we have the Trinity term. Durham used the old-fashioned way. So the first term from September to December is called Michaelmas term. The second term, I think, is called Trinity term, or maybe it's not. I'm clearly not posh enough to know these things. But after Easter, everybody will be doing their dissertation. So from April, Easter is really late this year, so from April to the summer, everybody will be writing their dissertation. But I can just read whatever I like. So far, I think I haven't heard that I need to do anything else, but I can read all the books I kind of rushed through this term. I can read them again, and I can read ahead for my next year's module. Obviously, I haven't chosen my module for next year yet, but I have a very specific idea I have a really clear idea what I want to do next year. I'm just hoping that professor is back from his study leave so I can just get in there immediately as soon as the module selection process starts. And then I will be focusing my dissertation, which I think is likely to be linked to that module next year. Which, if you know me, it's Shakespeare, obviously. I'm also hoping to get involved more with theatre next year too, with more campus life. Hopefully, I don't know how, because I'm still not going to live on campus. It's a nightmare living on campus by the sounds of it. There's a real shortage of housing for students in Durham. Durham is such a small city, but there are so many students. I think it's quite a challenge. It's a nightmare to get a house, a flat, a room in Durham if you're a student, if you're not quick enough. So I'm fortunate that I don't live in Durham. But the downside, obviously, is really hard to see friends, see course mates, to get involved with societies and things. Talking about student theatre, I watched a production of Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe in the Assembly Room Theatre in Durham last week, and it was excellent. It was the first time I watched a student production by Durham Student Classic Society Theatre. Oh, I'm so bad about names. But anyway, it was excellent. I would love to join them if they have a role for me to fill, or if they have things for me to do, or I can contribute in any way. I want to make most of that opportunity as a student at Durham. I have never seen Dr. Faustus before. There is a production, a professional production by Globe, Shakespeare's Globe in London, on their online streaming platform, but I haven't seen that yet. I had no idea what the story is about. I read the Goethe's version, Goethe's Faust, and I somehow thought that was the version they were performing, but it was Marlowe's version, and it was obviously largely the same. It was Dr. Faustus exchanging his soul for power with the devil. That bit is the same, but a lot of the details, the discussion, the focus was different. So yeah, that was very interesting too. But anyway, I should wrap up this video. It's long already. It's been a while. It's been weeks filming this video, clips here and there. And now it's the middle of December. I have one more week of work and it will be Christmas week and we'll be going away to see family. I have no idea what's going to happen in terms of my video filming and scheduling, and if I will post anything before Christmas, during Christmas. I haven't decided, I'm sorry. If I don't see you again, have a lovely time with friends and family. Have a lovely Christmas and New Year. Have a good rest, good break. I will see you in my next video. Bye.